Kamusta kayo? And welcome back, my fellow language teachers, to Adventures in Language. I'm your guide, Emily. And in today's video, we're talking about building our students' intuition for target language grammar. It all boils down to implicit learning activities. What exactly are they? Why do they matter? And what are 4 easy and fun ways that you can implement them in your classroom? All of that and more in today's video. For those of you who might not know me yet, I'm Emily. I'm a linguist at Mango. I have my PhD in linguistics and a true passion for language learning. Let's get to it. So why does intuition building matter for language learning? Well, we want our students to get to the point where speaking and understanding the language feels almost effortless, like they have a sixth sense for knowing when the grammar just feels right. The key to getting them there is through intuition building. And the best way to build intuition for target language grammar is through implicit learning activities. What do I mean by implicit learning? Well, it can best be understood by its contrast with explicit learning. So that means that it's definition check time. Okay, implicit learning. You can think of this like subconscious learning. Learners are expected to induce grammatical rules and self-correct through trial and error. On the other hand, explicit learning, you can think of this as conscious learning. So learners are provided with grammar rules and their errors are corrected through metalinguistic feedback. To better understand this, let's consider an example. Imagine there's a learner, we'll call her Aaliyah. Aaliyah didn't formally study her target language, never took a Spanish class. She moved to a Spanish-speaking community to immerse herself in the language. Never formally learned any of the grammar rules, just learned through listening, speaking, and what felt right. Now imagine another very different learner, we'll call him Brian. Brian is enrolled in a Spanish class, so he's studied a lot of the grammar rules. If you asked him, for example, how the subjunctive works in Spanish, he would be able to tell you that verbs get the subjunctive conjugation when their preceding clause expresses uncertainty. So in this way, Aaliyah and Brian represent 2 extreme ends of the implicit-explicit continuum. Brian lies at the explicit learning end and Aaliyah at the implicit learning end. So what's the difference? Explicit learning typically yields a faster learning rate, while implicit learning typically leads to more fluent use of the language. And of course, most real-life learners are going to end up somewhere in between those 2 extreme cases of a Brian and an Aaliyah. Ultimately, the right balance of implicit and explicit learning activities is going to depend on your learning goals with your students. To that end, it can be a really fun activity with your students to ask them where they want to be on the Brian-Aaliyah continuum. Asking them this at the outset of the semester can help them critically think about how they study outside of class based on their language learning goals. And if you'd like a worksheet to facilitate that exercise, then check out the link in the description to get your free copy of our Setting Good Goals worksheet. Okay, now here's the really important thing. Most language learning curricula today could use more implicit learning opportunities. Language learning curricula often rely too heavily on explicit learning activities, which can put students at a disadvantage where intuition building is concerned. So when it comes to finding the right balance, often it's usually a conversation about how do I integrate more implicit learning activities for my students? So how can you do that as a teacher? Well, let's dive into our 4 tips. Number 1, give lots and lots of examples of what grammatical sentences can look and sound like. Number 2, encourage your students to produce so that they can discover what's also ungrammatical in the language. Tip number 3, do weekly intuition builder activities. An intuition builder is a rapid fire activity that targets learning at the subconscious level. Let's say that your learning objective is to have students identify when to use the subjunctive versus the indicative conjugation in Spanish verbs. Simple. You would then create a series of Spanish sentences in which that verb in question is omitted. Give the students just enough time to read the sentence and submit their answer, the answer being indicative or subjunctive. Then you reveal the answer and move on to the next sentence. The key here is that they are under a quick time constraint. They can't sit and think strategically about what the grammar rules would say. They just have to go with their gut. They're so much fun. And number 4, use the Mango Languages app. The Mango app builds learners' intuition for the target language grammar through critical thinking exercises and our intuitive language construction methodology. Many language learning apps focus on memorization alone, which of course doesn't help create independent communicators. Mango's critical thinking exercises, on the other hand, help learners start to think naturally in a second language and intuitively speak their own phrases and sentences. To learn more about the Mango app yourself, check out our white paper, which is linked in the description down below. In addition to outlining the features within the app, the white paper explains how the Mango app builds students' intuition for target language grammar. Well, my fellow language teachers, that's all for this time on Adventures in Language. If you're new here and you'd like to make sure that you are up to date on all of our awesome language teacher content, then come join the fam by subscribing to the channel. Psst, want to know what languages were used in today's video? All of that information and more can be found in the description down below. Well, paalam, and I look forward to seeing you back here next time. Bye! I'm back! And I'm here to remind you to get your free language teacher goodies, which you can access through the link in the description. In next week's video, we're diving into every teacher's biggest secret power: formative assessments. If you want to be the first to know when that video goes live, then ring that notification bell. In the meantime, you can catch up on our existing videos, which you can access through the links here on the screen. Well, that's all for now. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.